Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Parliament has unanimously adopted a report on the Human Sexual Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, LGBTQ+ 2021, after its second reading. But it wasn't without drama as Member of Parliament for Ablekuma West, Esla Owusu Ekufu, clashed with MP for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, over the use of unsavory comments.
I sat here and repeatedly heard Honorable Mutala refer to me as a practitioner of LGBT to the hearing of everyone in this house. I sat here and repeatedly heard him
Honorable Minister,
shout at the top of his voice and refer to me as a practitioner of LGBT. And every single last one of you is behaving as if you didn't hear it. When you haven't seen me having sexual intercourse with your wife or your daughter or your mother.
3 more NPP flag bearers who took their turn in the vetting process are confident of sailing through in a special delegate congress as well as winning the presidential primaries. The total number of vetted presidential candidates now stand at 9.
You execute your plan. I'm at the place where I wanted to be at this time, and I'm very confident. God willing, I'll be part of the first 5.
After spending the night at the National Buffer Stock Company premises, agitating members of the National Food Suppliers Association say they will only leave if they are paid their outstanding arrears. The meeting between organized labor and management of Sanon Asogli ended inconclusively. Both parties have agreed to conclude the discussions on the dismissed unionized workers on Thursday, July 6. Meanwhile, organized labor says its intended July 10 strike still stands.
there are issues that we have put before the Commission, and those are the issues we are discussing, including the reinstatement of our brothers. And I'm saying that we have made some progress.
Are you therefore suspending your strike?
Oh, please, let us finish the meeting tomorrow.
The Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, is warning of a likely banking sector crisis if government does not check its appetite for the international capital market. According to a senior scholar at the Institute, Professor Alexander Bilson Daku, government's mismanagement of borrowed funds has been a contributing factor to downgrades from rating agencies. He spoke at the IEA policy dialogue on the topic, the 17 steps to and out of financial crisis in Ghana, lessons for the future.
We normally depend on the bilateral and multilateral sources of external sources to financial development, and so it gets to a point that could dry up, and when it dries up, then the government, in most cases, take the lead to go to the international capital market to borrow for development. That is when you get there, then if there is any trigger, like a downgrade like this, that would trigger a sudden reversal of capital reversal, then that will lead to severe economic consequences.
You can find more on 3news.com. But as a number of African countries have run to the IMF for support because of issues of mismanagement and also the mounting debts, we are still fighting corruption, which is robbing a number of African countries of the impact, the issues of development. The Afrobarometer survey, the 2022 version, actually reveals that 36 African countries have almost lost control when it comes to the fight against corruption. And corruption is increasing in 36 out of the 55 countries we have on the continent. That's dangerous. In fact, take a look at this. And we are grappling with issues of development, okay? And this is just a summary because we'll get into the details of it and we'll tell you how dire the situation is with the fight against corruption on the continent. This is how the picture looks like per the Afrobarometer survey. Corruption increased in 36 African countries between 2021 and 2022, but 6 in 10 Africans are saying that corruption increased in their countries. 6 in 10 Africans who were surveyed in here are saying that corruption increased in their countries. as per the respondents of this particular survey. They also point to another, that Senegal leads with 39 percentage points, followed by Burkina Faso, about 29 percentage points, and then corruption reported cases dropped by negative 61 percentage points if you do the comparative analysis with the previous period. But what you should bear in mind is what's happening in Senegal, for instance. It's a multifaceted issue. There's issues of governance and then issues of corruption as well that they are raising, which led to some riots and some of the reactions that we saw. The impact of corruption not being dealt with is not only underdevelopment, it's the lack of trust. And that also breeds all these reactions we see. That affects sound governance and democracies on the continent. And this is how there the picture looks like. So stay with me. Later, we will get into the details of this Afrobarometer survey on corruption. One of my guests join me. But coming up next, we get into Parliament, where Parliament has unanimously adopted the report on the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, LGBTQ plus 2021, after its second reading. Well, let's give you an idea of what happened today when all 275 members of Parliament unanimously adopted the report on the Human Rights and Ghanaian Family Values Bill, LGBTQ plus 2021, after its second reading. But it wasn't without drama. We saw some drama, but just give an idea of the debate and the issues that the members of Parliament raised when this matter was brought to the floor. Take a look.
We are all unanimous, and indeed, every member of this House, I have not encountered one person in this House who says that he's going to oppose this bill.
Any honorable member who disagrees with the submissions just made by the Honorable and the Apia Kubi, that all the 275 are in support of the bill. Anybody who disagrees, be on your feet, and I will recognize you.
Should never accept that other cultures are superior to ours, such that they must insist and demand that we copy the things they do, even if it is inconsistent with the way we live our lives and how we want our countries to be run.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I am inclined to say that the countries practicing LGBTQ activity, I gave them 50 years as prophets. They will be extinct on earth. Most of those countries will no longer exist on earth. Very soon, they may even have to be taking labor force from countries not practicing the LGBTQ activity.
Mr. Speaker, lastly, the sad thing is that you see two people who decide to be lesbian or homosexuals trying to adopt children. Who should go and give birth to his child for you to come and adopt? Look at this madness. Who should go and deliver a child for you to come and adopt? If having children is good, why are you into that nasty act?
Enforcing the rights of American citizens to refuse to offer services to people on the basis of their faith and because they were LGBTQ. Mr. Speaker, it shows you that even America has realized the error of their judgment.
Well, it was just excerpts of the debate that ensued in Parliament earlier today on this anti-LGBTQ plus bill. We had First Deputy Speaker Joe Sewusu and Mohamed Muntaka Mubarak, and then also Sam George, who's going to be joining us shortly. But there was some drama after the whole debate back and forth. The Member of Parliament for Ablekuma West and Communication and Digitalization Minister Esla Owusu-Ekofo clashed with the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, over the use of some unsavory comments on the floor of Parliament earlier today. Take a look.
I said every single member in this house must be allowed to debate on the issue. So we know the position of every single member of this house. Those who are for it and those who are against it. I have made that statement. So if that is the statement you are asking me to withdraw, I humbly withdraw that statement.
Honorable member, you made a specific statement in relation to the minister.
I sat here and repeatedly heard Honorable Mutala refer to me as a practitioner of LGBT to the hearing of everyone in this house. I sat here and repeatedly heard him
Honorable Minister,
shout at the top of his voice and refer to me as a practitioner of LGBT. And every single last one of you is behaving as if you didn't hear it. And if in response to that I say he is mad, it is only a madman who will refer to his colleague in this house as a practitioner of LGBTQ.
Honorable Minister,
when you haven't caught me having sexual intercourse with your wife, or your daughter, or your mother,
Honorable
you
Minister,
sit there and refer to me in those terms. In those terms.
Honorable Minister.
And we call ourselves honorable members of this house. When you all hear it and pretend that suddenly you've lost your sense of hearing.
Honorable Minister, I beg of you, do me that honest, please. Honorable Minister, I beg of you, just do me that honest, please. Just do me that honest.
Well, in the end, after this back and forth that we saw, there was that unanimous declaration and commitment for this bill. But there are some groups that are raising concerns about the details of this bill and how this bill is going to impact on rights and freedoms. So we wanted to understand this. Genevieve Partington is country director for Amnesty International. She spoke to my colleague, Martin Esiedudete, earlier about their specific issues with this anti-LGBTQ plus bill. Take a look.
It's amazing how we can spend so many hours and time on something that is happening in someone's bedroom, which is consensual, by the way. I don't see how that affects any of our lives. The other thing is that MPs are sworn into office with the mandate of protecting the rights of citizens. And this bill, if it comes into law, is infringing on the rights of a specific group of citizens. As much as we want to hide it or claim it's not been part of our culture or it's not part of our history books, it is. It's not foreign. It's been happening for a very long time. And it's about time we accept persons from the LGBT community. They're not asking for anything. We are the ones deciding, okay, we're going to prohibit marriage, we're going to prohibit association. The bill clearly violates a lot of human rights. I'll give you one, for example. It's infringing on freedom of expression, it's infringing on freedom of association. So basically, you're telling me that if I'm an ally of the LGBTI community, then I face a certain number of years in prison just because I'm an ally of the community. It also prohibits any fundraising or sponsorship of any form on activities of LGBTI. And funny enough, Ghana AIDS Commission, which is they say the AIDS factor, and they are mentioning numbers. Right. Why not mention percentages? Again, in its entirety, it infringes on human rights. Again, Ghana is a secular state. We are not a Christian nation. We're not a Muslim nation.
So that's Genevieve Partington, country director for Amnesty International. Let me put it on record that this anti-LGBTQ plus bill has not been adopted. In fact, we can say by extension what happened in Parliament today, that it is the report of the committee that has been adopted after this debate, or what we saw earlier today. But it's a long way. This is the second reading, so we'll see how things play out in Parliament. But Samuel Nate George is Member of Parliament for the Ningo Pram Pram constituency. He's one of the proponents of this anti-LGBTQ plus bill. Thank you so much, Mr. George, for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Now, you've heard the Amnesty International country director. They keep talking about this bill would infringe on the rights of this minority group. I mean, is that consistent with law?
Well, I do not understand what rights Amnesty International is speaking about. Amnesty International must bear in mind that laws are a function of jurisdiction. In Ghana, there are no rights that those so-called minority groups that they refer to have. Again, groupings are a function of recognition by the law. So the question we're asking ourselves is, does the law recognize the existence of those groups in the first place? It's just like you telling me that a prostitute is going to make a complaint in court, in the police station, that her client failed to pay her for an illegal act. The law doesn't recognize your trade, and so you have no protections in the law. But even when you look at the International Covenant, for example, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 18.4, it's clear. It says the state parties to the present covenant undertake to have respect for the liberty of parents and, where applicable, legal guardians to ensure the religious and moral education of their children in conformity with their own convictions. So that's an international legislation. It's an international treaty, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. How does that then take away from the rights of parents to determine how their children should be socialized? Again, when you read that convention and the UN Declaration on Human Rights and African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, all of them state the basis on which discrimination cannot happen. None of those international covenants mentions gender. And so on what basis are you conferring rights that don't exist? The Amnesty International is engaging in an illegal, unconstitutional exercise when they say that they are rights. They should show you how those rights are proved. Rights are enshrined in law. They should show you which law gives the right of these persons who are suffering from a mental disorder.
In fact, she does not mention infringement of rights of these minority groups. She also talks about freedoms, and she talks about freedom of association. So, for instance, the likes of her who identify or tends to as well defend this minority group cannot have any form of association. And she that's the point that she makes in what we just played, that this bill also infringes on that freedom of association as well. Is that consistent?
Well, she should bear in mind that the 1992 Constitution, that's what she's referencing, that talks about freedoms of association. Those freedoms are not absolute. They are enjoyable insofar as they do not infringe on the laws of the country and the freedoms of other people, and insofar as they are in consonance with public morals, public health, and public safety. So those freedoms are not absolute. She cannot expect that, or she cannot claim that the Constitution has given her carte blanche. For example, it's like you telling me that there's a right or a freedom of association, so we should have an association of armed robbers or an association of prostitutes, and the government must engage them and deal with them. That constitutional freedom is not absolute. There are boundaries to the enjoyment of those freedoms, and those boundaries mean that that association must be lawful. Now ask yourself, why did Parliament in 2020 pass the anti-vigilantism law? And in that anti-vigilantism law, you saw groups like the Invincible Forces, like Azofa Boys, being specifically named in that legislation. In fact, vigilante groups were disbanded. Why don't those citizens have a right to association? So why have we passed legislation to ban their rights to associate? So it tells you that this Amnesty International who you're referencing clearly doesn't understand even the legislation she's seeking to take solace under. She should go for proper education before she sticks to a pulse on national discussions and national law.
In fact, before what happened today, there was the argument by those who are against this bill or who find themselves in this minority grouping that there are some MPs who silently support this, and so if this comes to the plenary, it would not receive the full support of the members of parliament. But we saw all 275 of you, both sides, supporting this bill. This certainly must come at some refreshing moment for you.
Absolutely. Today sent a clear signal to the naysayers and the enemies of progress that Parliament is united. And I'm excited at what the Speaker did. He threw an open challenge. They say they have allies in Parliament. They have people in Parliament. Well, today, all their allies get their tails between their legs. If those allies indeed existed, because Parliament was offered them the opportunity. The Speaker said, if you stand and have a position against this bill, stand up and speak. We are listening. And nobody stood up to speak. And everybody who spoke today spoke by and large in support of the bill. Even when the member for Ablikma West raised her own fundamental issues, she ended by saying that she supported the bill in its current shape and form. So, I mean, it's a big shot in the arm for us to know that this has gone beyond the 8 sponsors, and now the 275 members of Parliament are fully on board with this bill. It's going to enjoy bipartisan support, and we hope that the President will tend to it expeditiously as soon as Parliament passes this bill.
Samuel Nate George, appreciate your time and thank you for these reactions as well on this. Thank you very much. A member of Parliament for the Ningo Pram constituency is one of the sponsors or proponents of this anti-LGBTQ plus bill. But these are some of the highlights of the bill in its current form. I'm going to put that on the screen right now that you follow every step of the way. This is it. That identifying as LGBTQ plus, having a gay relationship or intercourse with someone of the same sex is criminalized with up to 5 years imprisonment. Marrying or intending to marry someone who has had gender reassignment surgery would also be criminalized with up to 5 years imprisonment. Let's go to the next one. It says any public show of affection between people of the same sex or where one or some of the people involved identify as a gender different to their sex or have had sex reassignment is criminalized. That's indecent exposure. Also, it would also criminalize cross-dressing, enabling prosecution of anyone dressing in a way perceived as different from their biological sex. So, in fact, there's also the advocacy and publicity. Any person or group seen as promoting identities or acts prohibited in the bill or campaigning to support the rights of the LGBTQ plus people faces up to 10 years imprisonment. Duty to report. Anyone aware of gay acts who fails to report them could also be criminalized. In fact, so it has many aspects of it. And let's understand the purpose of this bill is to proscribe propaganda of, advocacy for, or promotion of LGBTQIAAP+, and provide protection and support for children and persons who are victims or accused of LGBTQIAAP activities. In fact, it also says that the details of it you will find also snippets of it published on 3news.com. Now, stay with us. There's a lot more coming up on these and more in the subsequent days. But coming up next on Ghana Tonight, after spending the night at the National Buffer Stock Company premises, agitating members of the National Food Buffer, that's the National Food Suppliers Association, say they will only leave the premises of the Buffer Stock Company if they are paid their outstanding arrears. Stay with me here on Ghana Tonight. We're going to cross over live to the car park of the Food Buffer Stock Company. We understand these food suppliers are still there. They too, they are sleeping there. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly after this quick break.
Gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint as compared to other paint brands on the market. We take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, 1 bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Everybody knows Acrobato. And if you know Acrobato, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Ha! Chese na me ankasa me period na se problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chese na nyana sam ketewa na mkwan point no mo hwe me modem no mo hwe bibia na so mo medu me fire no ene ma won kra mienu foforo kwa na mkwan mu a eba head everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama no nura ene ne ho idea watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you. Hello. Hey, ohwehwe what chair. Okay. A free bra wo di end point wa dance. I me call you no. Me Johnson sema na enkoyie empeso na my emre nyina na magina sebema na me no be fie for there e hwa de nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Free me Dede. Aha me gine. I Franco Trading Enterprise at Dabraka branch. Eba phones ni accessories any nyema keka ho nyina dia onim say Franco Trading Enterprise is number 1. Your television set from 24 inches to 65 inches. Air condition from 1.5 horsepower to 2.5 horsepower. Your CCTV cameras, Bluetooth speakers, your phone covers, protectors, pen drive, hard drive, iPhone, Samsung, Infinix, Huawei. It's a full beer open or yasima fanebia. Pura Franco Trading Enterprise. Franco Trading Enterprise. Phones papa, television papa, air conditions papa, accessories papa nina.
When good 15 years of age and not recommended for pregnant women. Blue Jeans Vodka Mix, another product from Budget Cash and Carry. This advert is FDA approved.
On the 9th of July 2023, the journey of happily ever after begins for one couple to be given the right to be called Ghana's perfect match. After weeks of love, drama, betrayal, and loyalty, we bring you the grand finale of your premier television reality show, Perfect Match Extra. 3 couples have gone through 9 weeks of love and drama and have proven their union is fit enough to be that perfect match. A couple now stands a chance to win 50,000 Ghana cedis cash, sponsor products, and so much more. Which couple is it going to be? Kobella, Gralino, or Etolin? Remember that you have the power to vote your favorite couple to become the maiden winners of Perfect Match Extra. Keep voting for your favorite couple on the TV3 reality app and on pmextra.tv. Join us at the forecourt of TV3 on the 9th of July 2023 from 6 p.m. sharp by answering questions and winning points on pmextra.tv. And be a part of a love festival before the main show at 8 p.m. sharp. Let's end all the fun and drama on a perfect note with a grand finale of Perfect Match Extra Season 1.
Perfect Match Extra is sponsored by Close-Up Complete Fresh Protection for your important oral care needs. Geisha Moringa and Geisha Black Soap for soft and glowing skin. Frutelli Calipo, Forever Clear. Beauty by Cava.
Darling Lemon Drink.
Flora Tissue. And Napa Foods. Say Napa. Enye Ono Soko. Heaven Black Insecticide Spray and Coil. Heaven Dear Bakope. Top Choco. Ebony Condoms.
Gino Tomato Mix.
Supported by Bell Ice. CapFam. Empire Kitchens. Drugnet. Malcolm. Where Ghana shops.
Blue Jeans Energy Drink.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. Now, the members of the National Food Suppliers Association say they will not leave the premises of the National Food Buffer Stock Company until their monies owed them are paid. 270 million cedis, which spans over a 2-year period. Now, this is day 2 of their picketing at the premises of the Food Buffer Stock Company. They slept there last night. We want to find out if, after spending the night today, there was any sensitive response or reaction to these mothers, grandmothers, and grandfathers, and who spent the night there, even at the peril of their own health, from what we understand. Some of them had to be rushed to the hospital earlier today because of the exposure to the weather conditions last night. My colleague Lord Eduasari is connecting with us live from the car park of the National Food Buffer Stock Company. Lord, tell me what's going on there.
Alfred, I'm seated here at the car park. If you watch closely, we still have some of the members resting. It's been a long day, exactly 24 hours since they got here. You rightly noted that some of them got sick and had been taken to the hospital. The woman you see in my shot right now is one of the persons who is ill and she's resting right now. I understand that during the day she was made to go rest within the premises, but as it stands now, she wants to be with her fellow suppliers, and so she's resting here with them. I just want to pick the thoughts of some of them because they've actually been here for a while. And Alfred, I must note that in the few minutes that I've been here, I've had to battle mosquitoes. They actually offered to give me a mosquito repellent to fend these mosquitoes off. So you can imagine the kind of ordeal that they have been going through. Auntie, good evening. So this is Auntie Agi here. Auntie Agi, kindly, then also, and Mobeda ha, Kitty, Enra.
I bought best of number 3 is
Now, a banner son in Penifono or mobile home.
Obiama beside. I no pay na penny back between and no chair and no beside me. What is the local rat and them Okura a Jumemuho. A year can no between and country one beside.
Now, I dare a damn drink to say and say, Fitty and Rabba, Moya Dane Jarry, because some could see him whom say if you need them would be by Monset.
Not yet, now, and then might be hammer.
Okay,
but a day of office, which is a tobacco if he would
okay.
And he fed back before Omukuja, which Omopa, yes, Yakuja.
I see.
Which he in Gali, Yamapa in Gali.
Alfred, you heard Auntie Agi, she's from the eastern region, Koforida to be precise. She says that they haven't been able to bath. They normally try to bath in batches. I see here one of the woman who was unwell is finally up now. Let me just pick her thoughts, Auntie. Sorry, good evening. Just say I don't want to sing.
That's all.
No, then what's in there?
Hey, Yesika. Sika ya Juma San Tiaika. There's 2 years ago. Ya bahas ya Sika. Ana Sika Antontomuka San. Then they are the thing and on my own family without. Tiendu, Mamoko Toy, Sana, Sana make us. And I mean, once on Tontomuka is a best in family in Sankura.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't near here.
What's a Robusta for Honka when you're meeting? How do they feel about this?
I'm a busy for them, my culture must have.
Okay.
Now, so Missy Canada, this a magic and Sana Marco.
A year then I'll better.
Me Jimmy Sika, me da has Jimmy Sika and Sana Marco. If you say, Aduma me ye no Sikano and Yamedi, my free a man for near Massa, me to beans, me ton catia, broby beer, oil, and monument, my free. Say no, dear baby, omudi me ginano, omuni me dino. And ye cora, I been some of them call Abosum, Aqua Musica. My patcho sang, almost a magis canady. Miss a man Jessica and in terms of them make Abosum. Tianinti na me so mani abra ma betena ha say meji mesika.
Sorry, Alfred, that was you had some narrations from some of these suppliers. I've cited Koku Amaduma, who is the spokesperson of the group. Koku, talk to me. What has been happening? 24 hours, you are still here. You haven't heard anything from the people. Your other suppliers are telling me that no executive, no manager has spoken to you in the past 12 to 24 hours that you have been here. What is going on? Have you heard anything?
We haven't heard anything, and we are not surprised because they have never been straightforward with us. They have never paid attention to us. It's always been like that. So we're not surprised. We are just happy that TVC is giving us this opportunity. We hope that His Excellency the President of the Republic is listening. This is a national security issue. If we really want to do a serious analysis of the situation or the conditions of the people that we are dealing with, we only pleading that something can be done as much as possible so that these people can return back to their homes.
So far, you have at least 3 of your members who have been downed, for want of a better word, by if not the weather conditions, mosquitoes, and other things. How long are you willing to stay here?
Well, we indicated that we're going to be here till our money is paid.
And do you have any update on the ones who are in the hospital at the moment? How are they faring right now?
Yes, the last time we checked on them was 3 hours ago. The husband told us that she's responding to treatment. Auntie Bellis is responding to treatment. The other 2 ones, we got them a hotel to take a rest. But intermittently, we've been going there to check on them. They are on a stable condition. We just pray and hope that we are able to keep them alive to get our money.
All right, thank you very much, Mr.
You're welcome.
So, Alfred, that's the status here. You heard the spokesperson of the Food Suppliers Association giving us updates on what has been happening so far.
I see. Now, Lord, this is heartbreaking, to say the least. I mean, listening to the people you've been talking to, these are people who are very advanced in age. I see an old lady behind you, the 70-year-old that we were talking about yesterday, and they have been left to their fate. The only crime they've committed is what? To have supplied food to the buffer stock, and they've not been paid for 2 years, and they have to endure this? Tell me, the old lady there as well, how are they coping with the situation, especially because of the weather conditions that we're dealing with within this period?
Yeah, and Alfred, like you said, the weather has been quite harsh. If you've been monitoring, the weather has been quite unstable. Sometimes it showers, and these past few weeks have been very cold. And so if you see, they have their quilts, they have their cover cloths, and they're trying to keep themselves busy so they don't fall ill. We already have 3 of them unwell. And the heartbreaking part is the fact that these are elderly people with their families, and they haven't been able to shower because no one is really paying them any attention, despite the fact that they've been here for a considerable amount of time, Alfred.
Now, and they say that one of the officials came there to the office and only greeted them and walked in. That was it. They haven't had anything from buffer stock or even any member of government. Nobody has come to them to talk to them.
Nothing at all. In fact, Koku Amaduma was telling me that since they got here, apart from the one time that an official came around and came to say hello to them and drove off, essentially no one has been to the office. They just have 2 receptionists in the building who has been, they've been very kind to let them use the place when they want to use the washroom. Other than that, no official has spoken to them. Nothing at all, no update.
I see, but tell me about the place where you are and the issues about security as well, because from what I understand, this is the car park of the buffer stock company, correct?
It is, Alfred. Let me just take a quick tour, right? It's quite a very large compound. The car park, there are 2 cars here, and there's a very large name tree here. You can see that they've arranged some of their placards, the water that they are drinking. It's relatively dark. I mean, if you don't see cars bypassing their places, the houses around are illuminated, but the streets are dark. They have a security post, and if you look closely, you see the security man seated there on the phone somewhat. Apart from that, they have themselves, and that's it. So they are basically looking out for each other.
Lord, thank you. Thank you very much for this. Lord is sorry. Good Lord. I mean, look, that is what these people are living with as we speak. The situation is dire. We decided to spend some time with them so you have an idea of how they're living throughout the night. This is their second night, and they've been left to their fate. There hasn't been any response from any official to talk about the Buffer Stock Company. We understand they are somewhere in the Ashanti region for a program. Nobody has responded to the concerns of these people who only provided food to Buffer Stock to feed children under the Free Senior High School program. And they are having to go through this to demand the money that they are owed. They are not begging for it. The money they are owed. And this is what they have to go through. There's some level of sensitivity that we're demanding that should be attached to this situation. It's an urgent one because of the people who are there and what we have seen. We'll stay the steam on this matter until we get some responses to it. But this is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, former Trade and Industry Minister Alan Kojo Chemanting is saying that he is the only one who can break the 8, urging delegates not to be intimidated by the choice of their candidate. And Chemanting was addressing delegates in parts of the Greater Accra region as part of his campaign tour. Take a look.
If the government had listened to my advice, we wouldn't have gone to the IMF. Most initiatives, including 1D1F touted by the NPP, was my initiative. I am part of the founding fathers of the party, so it's time for you to put me forward.
Let's stay on this. Professor Kobi Mensah is a political marketing strategist and also a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Kobi Mensah, thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. Now, this is not the first time Alan Chemanting has employed this campaign of disassociation from the failures of this government. You heard him saying that if they had listened to him, we wouldn't be at IMF. This is a cabinet minister for that matter. How is this working for him?
Thank you for the question. Alfred, usually in branding, in commercial branding, there is what we call brand association, i.e., brands would usually have some kind of connection with, certain, parties, certain elements, through their operations. So, for example, usually brands are associated with the kind of customers they serve. And because those customers are much more prominent, whenever you cast your mind or your eyes on that particular brand or that particular customer, the brand comes to mind. So there is an exercise that we do in marketing. We say that, if you look at Mercedes-Benz, if Mercedes-Benz were to be a human being, what kind of human being would they be? And the answer would be perhaps a rich man, in their middle ages or their upper quartile of the ages, etc. These exercises, we do them because it's a kind of activities that actually sort of sells the brand, with the kind of parties, with the kind of elements or human beings that they are associated with. Usually, it is stronger when the connection or the visibility is high. So when the brand is seen with those elements that they are associated with regularly, then the connection is high. If it is not seen with those elements regularly, then the connection is low. Now, the reason why Alan Kyerematen could be able to do that is because we have in the competition another, candidate who is much more closer and their connection to the current regime or the president is much more stronger than that of Alan Kyerematen. Now, when the government came into power, or even during the campaigning period, Nana Addo, significantly used, the vice president as the poster boy for the campaign, and had regularly said that this is, the economic, a wizard that he was going to help his administration to solve the economic issue. So the connection between Nana Addo or the current regime and the vice president is much more stronger. Now, you couldn't actually say the same for Alan Kyerematen, even during the administration's period. Now, you would see a lot more of, Bawumia than you would see with Alan Kyerematen. And so with that kind of analysis, it is not strange or it is not difficult for the Alan team to demonstrate a decoupling from the administration if they think that in the eyes of the voters, the administration hadn't performed, amazingly well in comparison with what they promised. They would want to disassociate, or they would, as we say in branding, they would want to decouple, from the regime or from the administration. Whereas with Bawumia's case, it would be very difficult for the decoupling to happen because the association or the connection with the regime is much more stronger. And that's why you see, Alan, doing that. And other candidates doing that as well.
I see, but Alan Kyerematen was a cabinet minister. He sat with the economic management team. He had direct audience with the president on matters of policy, because he makes reference to the fact that 1D1F was his idea and it was adopted and is successful. I mean, so if that's the case, how is it that you can make this direct suggestion that, well, if they had listened to him, we're not going to be at the IMF now? Is he suggesting that the president does not listen to his cabinet ministers?
Well, of course, what he's saying is one, in terms of the practicality of the situation is another. So if he says that, then we would take him by his word. But of course, I am discussing strategy here. I'm saying that it is possible as a strategy for somebody to actually go on that tangent, as Alan is actually doing, the decoupling strategy. Now, if it was that the performance of the administration was good, and he had been part of it, although not stronger or weak, stronger. It depends on how they deploy the strategy effectively. So yes, in practice, yes, he was a cabinet minister. In practice, he was part of the government. As to whether the decoupling strategy, would have impact or would influence the position of the voters in terms of the delegates, of course, we'll live to see. But certainly, the extent to which people would believe that particular narrative and the extent to which he would give evidences to sort of buttress his position also count, for that strategy to work or not. So obviously, we'll live to see that.
Indeed, we'll live to see. But how does it work when, with that speech we just played, he takes credit for the 1D1F, but then says, look, as for the failures and if we're going to the IMF, I cannot be associated with it because if they had listened to me, we wouldn't be here. How does that work?
I think that when you listen to him, and I did, when he granted interviews in the past and even recent one, I don't think that he completely had disassociated. I think he made a point that if he had been listened to, which suggests that perhaps there had been an incursions, on some kind of positions in terms of policy positions, and perhaps they hadn't taken it. So he's actually not saying that he didn't work in the administration. He didn't say that he hadn't actually performed a certain role, but he's perhaps saying that if his positions in terms of policy pronouncement, policy positions, etc., had been taken, perhaps things would have been different. And that means that it is up to, for example, the media to probe further and see which of your positions were not taken, and what are the evidences that could actually buttress those claims or those narratives. I think that is what we have to say. But I don't think that I heard him say he completely did not, perform a role, or they couldn't. I think that his point is that, yes, he had made some positions. Maybe if he had been taken on, perhaps they wouldn't be where they are.
Professor Kobe Mensah, thank you so much for connecting with us here on Ghana Tonight. As always, I appreciate your time staying up to connect with us. He is a political marketing strategist. He's a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Kobe Mensah, thank you. Now, a survey conducted by the Afrobarometer revealed that corruption increased drastically in 36 African countries between 2021 and 2022. In fact, we're going to put that on the screen right now. If you see in these countries, the Afrobarometer is saying that 6 in 10 Africans say corruption increased in their countries. Also, the report discloses that corruption increased a lot by 46% and increased somewhat by 12%, but stayed the same at about 20%. And the rankings we see, Senegal and Burkina Faso goes on and on. In fact, they also say that the corruption situation has worsened significantly in 12 of the 36 countries surveyed. Now, Mariada is Director of Programs at the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Madam Mariada, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Now, you've seen portions of this survey in there. It clearly shows corruption is growing, but we have leaders going to sign on to a lot of frameworks. So where is the disconnect?
Thank you, Alfred. Good evening to your viewers. Let me start by saying that in research, one of the things we seek to do is to collect information. And in that information, it's by the citizens. And Afrobarometer constitutes what the citizens say. So we are validating what their experiences and shared perceptions are. So it would be very interesting to interrogate further why citizens believe that. But then these are their lived experiences. And so whatever data you are collected, you analyze. And whatever the analysis produce is what you share. And so if the data is affirming that the issue of corruption, be it perception of or experiences on the African continent is increasing or has seen an increase, then we shouldn't be too surprised. And when you ask whether we are making any effort to achieve any good or significant strides, I would say that in the sense of Africa, people are doing what they can in their various countries. I can contextualize that for our setting, which is Ghana. But to say that you have clearly indicated that we are quick to sign on to these treaties and frameworks. And let me mention that in the anti-corruption space, we have the UNCAC, that's the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And we also have the AU Convention, that is the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. So these are treaties we have signed on to as a people, or conventions we, as state parties, have signed on to ensure that we comply with. And in these treaties, we put together, or they are documented, certain elements that are required to ensure that the fight against corruption happens and is effective. You realize that the NACAP talks about a lot of different things in the various chapters, preventive measures, even international cooperation is another. And so where we have issues, we could even cooperate with other nations. Unexplained wealth is a big one, RTI and others. And if you look at most of those benchmarks, when it comes to the implementation, you would realize that we tick most of those boxes when it comes to enacting legislations to ensure that corruption is an offense. We have done so. We have even gone ahead to make it a third-degree felony. When it comes to ensuring that the institutional architecture exists to do so, again, we have done a very significant job at that. Unfortunately, when it comes to the element of enforcement or action to ensure that perpetrators of corruption do not engage in such behavior, and then we are meting out the necessary sanctions and punishments to ensure that people do not do same, you would realize that we are, in most of the instances, we come in short. And I say so because in one of the UNCAC reviews, I think there were recommendations to ensure that enforcement is one of the key parameters we should be looking at. And we have continued as civil society to mention the issue of enforcement. We have continued to advocate that there is a need to make corruption one of the activities that is a high-risk one. But unfortunately, even though we've set up all the institutional mechanisms, when it comes to ensuring that people comply, either it takes too long or forever to deal with. And for that matter, the issue of citizens' trust in the institutions then diminishes.
Very, very important point there. Madam Mariada, thank you very much for your time here on Ghana Tonight. This is the Director of Programs, Ghana Integrity Initiative, Local Chapter of Transparency International. Well, I want to say thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. Join us same time tomorrow as we stay the steam on the happenings at the Food Buffer Stock Company with these food suppliers still. Tonight, they are spending the nights there. So tomorrow morning, you're going to hear a lot more of it on the 6 a.m. news and on New Day as well on TV3 and across all media journal platforms. I am Alfred Ocansey. On behalf of the rest of the team, do have a good night.
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.